What's going on, everybody? It's Dominic from the Primetime Treasure eBay store and YouTube channel, back at Primetime Treasure headquarters in Syracuse, New York, fresh off a little trip to Washington, D.C., now back in action in the HQ. So, I want to do a little video with you today about returns. Why I do 60-day returns, why I think that's something you should strongly consider, how to handle returns, and also not just how to handle returns if an item is reported as defective or not as described, but also how to handle return situations when it's really actually just a buyer's remorse situation. So first, just as a general introduction about returns. You know, as a seller, you get to set your return policy on eBay. You could say that you don't accept returns. You could say that you accept returns, but that you will charge a restocking fee. So be like 20%, 25%, 10%, 15% of the item. You get to set the number yourself. You could set a 14-day return policy, a 30-day return policy, a 60-day return policy. You could require that the buyer pay for return shipping, or you can offer to pay free shipping for the buyer if they initiate a return. So let's take a look at some of those different options, okay? And first, just in general, why people offer returns to begin with. The reason why you would offer a return policy for a buyer is because it provides the buyer confidence that you have trust in your item. In other words, the buyer knows that you would not ideally want to accept a return, but you're saying that you will accept one because you are confident that they will like the product. If the buyer sees that you don't accept returns, the buyer is going to think, most likely, that there could be something wrong with this product, and that's why the seller does not want me to return it. They're going to think the seller really just wants to stick me with the item and then give me no option to return it. Yeah, there's some pictures that I could look at here that the seller put up, but there's nothing really quite like seeing it in person. So maybe the seller's hiding something from me. So it heightens suspicion. So that is one reason why I offer returns for buyers, is because I want them to be confident. Now, on eBay, again, you could offer 14-day, 30-day, or 60-day returns. If you want to be classified as a top-rated seller plus, so there's top-rated seller plus. Top-rated seller plus is going to get you 20% off of your final value fee. So if you're selling a lot of stuff, that's significant savings over the long term. If you want that, and there's other criteria that you have to meet, but if you want that, you have to at least offer 30-day returns to the buyer. So the question then becomes, if I'm going to offer 30-day returns, what about 60-day returns? Now, if you offer 30-day returns and you're a top-rated seller plus, that's going to not only give you a discount on your final value fee, but that's also going to bump you up in the search rankings, because especially if you're offering quick handling time, like one-day handling time, which I suggest if you could do as well. That quick processing time and that great return policy is going to bump you up in the search rankings. So that's another reason why you would want to offer at least 30-day returns. So the question then again, 30 versus 60. I would argue that you should offer 60-day returns, and here's why. If someone is going to return an item on eBay, they are typically going to initiate that return within a few days of receiving the item, typically no more than a week. It is exceedingly rare that someone is going to wait weeks, 30 days, or 60 days to return an item. In other words, if they haven't returned it within a week, the chances that they're going to return it at all are extremely low. Now, of course, there's exceptions to all these things, but I'm just talking in generality. So therefore, offering 30-day returns versus 60-day returns, it's really not something that should matter much for you in terms of the bottom line. So why not offer the 60-day return policy, given that, if especially it's going to bump you up in the search rankings, which it should do. So there's a lot of benefit to you as the seller for offering that. So the next question then becomes, who should pay for the return? Should the buyer pay for the return, or should the seller pay for the return? Now, you really, as the buyer, of course, the buyer isn't think about, put yourself in the situation of the buyer. The buyer's not going to want to pay for the return. Generally, no matter what, they're not going to want to do that. Now, the seller, on the other hand, of course, also usually doesn't want to pay for the return because they don't want to lose money. Okay, especially if they did free shipping. So the seller shipped it out for free, and now if the person wants to return it, they also have to absorb the cost of getting it shipped back to them. But I would argue again that, and I know there could be different perspectives on this and people might disagree with me, but I would argue that in general, you really should try to offer what we call free returns, that the seller would pay for the return. And here's why. And this also gets into the restocking fee, because people charge a restocking fee generally to try and discourage a return, because they think the buyer is going to say to themselves, well, hey, it says I have to pay 20% restocking fee if I send this back. I don't want to do that, so I won't initiate the return. In reality, buyers can get out of that real easily. All they have to do is say that the item is not as described. They could say that it's defective in some way. They could say that there's something in it that they received that wasn't in the pictures or wasn't in the description. They could make up a reason. So the item could be perfect. It could be that it just doesn't fit, or that they don't like it for whatever reason. They just decided, nah, I don't really like that color. Nah, I'm going to go with something else. I don't really want this. I just want to return it, which is buyer's remorse. But buyer's remorse, they might feel, well, I don't want to do a buyer's remorse, because if I do a buyer's remorse, then I will have to pay a restocking fee. So what they'll do in that situation is they could just, again, make up something, and they could even damage your item, okay, and send it back to you. So and say, hey, well, this is how you sent it to me. And you might dispute that, but in general, eBay's likely going to side with the buyer in these types of controversial situations. So you have to know that as well going in. If you're going to get the item back and you have the potential to resell it and still make some money on it, would you rather get it back defective because someone damaged it on purpose just to get out of your restocking fee that you're charging? Or damage it to get out of having to pay for the return shipping? So if you set in your listings that the buyer has to pay return shipping, guess what? Here's a little secret that you might not know about, especially if you're starting out new on eBay. Even if you have that policy, if eBay gets a notice from the buyer that it's not as described, it voids anything you had to put in your specific policy on your listing about whether or not you're going to accept or whether or not you're going to charge for shipping coming back to you. So if you said that you're going to charge for shipping coming back to you, and you already put that in there, and the buyer says it's item not as described, it's void. Okay, you have to pay the return shipping as the seller. So again, for all of these different reasons, this is why I just say it's not worth it. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the effort and arguing. Just put it in as you will pay the free shipping. Now, I know what some people are thinking. You're just promoting scammers and you're just going to allow people to scam you by doing things this way. That has not been my experience, and I've been doing eBay for a long time. I started doing eBay in 1998, took a break for a long time, and came back to it and been doing it pretty actively again for a while. And this has not been my experience. I'll tell you my experience in selling lots and lots and lots and lots of items on eBay is that last year, the entire calendar year of 2017, I had one return. Actually, no, sorry. I had 2 return requests. 2. Now, one person who wanted to return something to me because they thought the pages of the book were a little more yellow than were described in the listing, which I don't agree with. But regardless, even though I said I would pay the free shipping, on the return, the buyer actually said to me, I'm going to take it to the post office and I will pay to ship it back to you. I said, you don't have to do that, but the person insisted. So that really goes against this notion of that everyone is a scammer, because this person would just didn't want it. Okay, didn't like the color of the pages, but still sent it back to me. I didn't have to pay the return shipping, and I resold it, and I still made good money on the book. Okay, it was an old Little House on the Prairie book, and a book set, and the original a slipcase cover. So it still made good profit on it because it ships out medium mail, which doesn't cost that much. The other person, now this would go to what I believe was likely a scammer, was someone who purchased an Evil Queen Halloween outfit from me. And the person received it a few days before Halloween. Even though all the measurements were listed there, the person said, you know what, I looked at it and I could tell it's not going to fit. It looks really nice, but I could tell it's not going to fit. I like to do a return. Okay, so I accepted the return. That automatically generates a return label that eBay sends to the buyer. Now the buyer has 5 days to send that back to you. Well, of course, in this situation, the buyer waited until after Halloween, which was still within the 5 days, to send me back the outfit. So I think what likely happened in this situation is that the person made up a reason for the return and likely used the outfit, went out to use it on Halloween, and then sent it back so that they didn't have to pay for it. People, of course, do this all the time in stores with clothes. They'll buy an outfit, they'll wear it, and then they'll bring it back to the store and they'll return it. So there are people out there that do that. Now, the advantage that you have as an eBay seller, and also on other online selling platforms, as opposed to a retail clothing store where this kind of stuff happens all the time, is if you feel that the buyer is scamming you, after you process the return, you could simply block the buyer. And that's what I did in that particular instance. So only 2 instances in all of 2017, and I've had 1 instance of someone who has requested a return this year for buyer's remorse reasons, and I'll get in again to buyer's remorse a little bit more in just a moment. But I processed that return, accepted the return, but the person hasn't sent it back yet. And if they don't send it back within 5 days, well, then I don't have to accept the return, and I still get to keep my money from the sale. And that's an important point. Just because you accept the return doesn't mean the person's going to always send it back. I mean, that's why people companies offer rebates for things, because they put the little tags on. For example, if you go into the wine store or something, or you go into the grocery store, put a little tag on, here's a rebate. The reason why that works and the reason why people use it is because a significant percentage of people who will not fill out the rebate form, and all they have to do is write down a couple of things, put their address in, put it in an envelope, send it off. There's a significant percentage of people who won't actually do that. They won't follow through, and then you don't follow through, the rebate date is gone past, and you're not going to get your rebate, obviously. So sometimes that's also going to happen with return shipping. People just won't follow through and actually packing it, sending it, bringing it back, repacking it, bringing it to the post office. Plus, just so you know, they do have to send it back to you in the same order and in the same quality that you received it in. So if they send it back and it's damaged, it's defective, it's missing things that were in there, you think they switched something on you, you definitely would want to call eBay on that so you could get a refund on it. Now, to increase the chance that eBay is going to believe you that there really was something defective, what I would highly suggest is, as soon as that item comes in to you, get it to your house, you film yourself from the very beginning, looking at that package, film the package, film the address on the package, all corners of the box, and film yourself opening it for the very first time. If there's a defect in it, then you could actually send that video to eBay proving as much as you possibly can that there actually was a defect as soon as you opened it. You saw it was all sealed up, you took the tape off and everything, and that's what it looked like. So there's that. That's just something you should be aware of. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you, this is just another way to think about returns, okay? I mentioned there's a 20% if you get top rated seller plus label on eBay, there's a 20% savings off your final value fee. Think of how much money that adds up to if you're selling in high volume or even in moderate volume on eBay. Okay, that's a lot of money. I mean, it's hundreds, thousands of dollars over time. All that's extra money that you're getting in partly because you're offering 30 to 60 day returns. So, okay, so someone wants to return an item, okay? Just process the return and think of it this way. The money that you are making from offering the 30 to 60 day return much more than offsets whatever cost you're incurring on having to have somebody ship something back to you and you paying for it. It's not going to happen that often as long as you're doing things right. As long as you are packing your product securely and safely. If you sell clothes and you are putting in measurements to try to increase the chances that someone's going to know that the item's going to fit them. If you're doing all of those things, the chances that someone's going to initiate a return is low. You cannot eliminate all return requests, but that's something that you can do to significantly decrease the chances of return. Another thing I would mention is something that you want to do, and this goes back to my negotiating videos, is you want to make sure as much as possible you are acquiring and sourcing your inventory for the lowest possible prices. Because if you do have to take a return back, that's going to decrease the hit on you financially on that particular item. So again, just try to make sure you're negotiating, get as best of a deal as possible on the item so that it just won't sting as much when you get the return request. Okay. Now, another thing is that then just another thing to consider, and let's actually go into the buyer's remorse situation for a second. Okay. So buyer's remorse, person just, let's say for example, they ordered this shirt, okay, this Harley Davidson shirt that I have laying around here. They ordered this shirt, they get it, and they submit a return request, and they don't say it's defective in any way. They don't say there's any damage to it or anything. They just say, hey, I just decided I don't like it. They're honest. They just say, I didn't like it. I don't want to return it. Okay? So, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, no, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it back, or you have to pay the return shipping? You could say that. You could say, well, you have to pay the return shipping because it's buyer remorse. But if you do that, think of a few things. One, you're probably going to get the buyer mad. Now, of course, you're mad, but the buyer, unlike you, has the ability to leave negative feedback for you. You cannot leave a negative feedback for the buyer. They could do it to you. You can't do it to them. So that's always something you have to have in the back of your mind. And if you offer 30-day or 60-day returns, okay, there's no spot on eBay that qualifies it and says, well, I accept a 30-day return except for buyer's remorse, or I accept a 60-day return except for buyer's remorse, or I'll pay for return shipping except for buyer remorse. You could say that in your listing, but there's no area in eBay where you could click on where that's going to happen. And the problem for you is that the way eBay is going to look at it in an automated sense when they're processing the return request, they're not going to look at anything you wrote in your listing from a bot perspective. They're just going to look at what does your return policy say. And it says you take returns and maybe that you also cover the free shipping. So this person initiates a return request and they say that they want to do it basically for buyer's remorse reason, and you say, no, I'm not going to accept it. Or you say, I'll accept it, but you have to pay a return shipping. Well, in that situation, the way eBay could look at it is that you are not honoring your return policy. And that is never a situation where you want to be in. If you get in a situation where eBay looks at you as that you are not honoring your return policy, you are going to eventually get downgraded, particularly if that is something that continuously happens. That can knock you off of Top Rated Seller Plus, and there you go, you just lost your 20% money off of your final value fee. It's not worth it for the few times during the year that this should happen to you in terms of return requests. Now, you might be right and you might be correct in that you know, philosophically, hey, really, I shouldn't have to pay for this return. I mean, you should have known that this was not something that you would like. You're just kind of, you know, you saw the pictures, there's nothing defective with it. I shouldn't have to pay for the return. You might be correct in that, again, philosophically. But at the end of the day, if you decide to start changing and switching things on the buyer, you start arguing with them about the returns, ultimately they again are going to have that power of saying you didn't accept your you didn't honor your own return policy, and putting that in big bold letters for a negative feedback for you. Now, yes, you could call eBay and you could try to get that feedback removed, and they may or may not do that. But why take the chance? Why deal with the stress? Just process the return and move on and be done with it, and go on to the 99% of buyers out there who are not trying to scam you, who are purchasing your products, and focus on them. Trust me, it will be a much, much easier and less stressful experience for you doing it that way. So that is why, as to sum up, that is why I do 60-day returns, free shipping, that I will cover. Again, there could be exceptions to it. You know, if it's a super, super expensive item, costs like, you know, hundreds of dollars to ship or something like that, then yeah, you're probably going to want to say something, you know, in the, you know, in your comment section, in your description section, you know, within eBay regarding your return policy. Again, but you know, you could get into situations where the buyer could fight it, and it could get pretty nasty. But again, you know, for really super expensive items for shipping, you know, you might want to make some exceptions. But again, as a general rule of thumb, for most sellers, for most items that people are selling out, clothes, books, you know, things of that nature, toys, generally, you know, the shipping costs are not crazy or not excessive, and it's just not worth the hassle. Okay. So, feel free, please share with me your thoughts about what I'm telling you, and what your return policy is and why you have it that way. Do you think you're going to keep it that way if it's different from what I've suggested, or are you going to switch it to 60-day free returns? I could just again tell you from personal experience, it's worked wonders for me. I would not change it. I love doing it that way. I think it has really been much, much more beneficial in the long run, as opposed to being, you know, anything that has any significant negative associated with it. If anything changes, of course, I'll update you guys and let you know. But as of right now, having done this for a long time, and having followed also other YouTubers who use the same policy, I think overall it's something that's proven to be successful and could ultimately be of maximal benefit to you. So again, drop a comment down below if you have something that you'd like to add, or if you have a question of something that I didn't answer. I try to respond to most of the comments. Please also make sure you hit the like button, give me a big thumbs up. Make sure you come to the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. We got to get those numbers to 50 by the end of the month. I think we're at 43. People are joining based on these videos. Come over, join. We've got a great group. You could come over, promote your brand in a non-spammy way. Maybe you have a YouTube channel you want to promote and share. I love seeing other people's YouTube videos. Drop a link to your eBay store, show everyone what's going on. Let us take a look at it, and you know, start networking with us. It's a great group. Love to see you come by. The link to it is down below in the description section. Just click that, hit join. I'll check your profile. If everything looks good, you're in. Or you could just search for the Reselling Resource Center on Facebook if you happen to be there. Real important, I need you guys to subscribe to these videos, okay? The subscribing is getting a little, little tepid, and I'd like it to, go up a little bit more. So my goal was to try to get to 100 by the end of the month. That might have been overly ambitious, but hey, I'm trying. Right now we're up to 61. So I know there's plenty of you out there that are watching these videos and you like them, but you're not hitting subscribe. Please just make sure you hit that treasure chest, hit subscribe, and you will be notified anytime any other videos come out that I make. And it also just helps me in knowing that there are people out there who are benefiting from the videos and are enjoying them. So that's it. I will see you guys pretty soon with the next video. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.